For those that don't know, or maybe are wondering, what define API sound? If we made a record here, you and I, and we were in Studio 2 on Neve 8088, or in this room on that Frank Dominio API, if you have API components, how's the sound? Is it brighter? Is it clearer?
Both consoles, compared to some of the solid state consoles, both consoles can come across as being a little darker. Okay, just because of the transformers and stuff. That's just the way it is. Anytime you have a transformer, introduce a transformer to something, you have what they call hysteresis, which is a lag of when you charge the transformer with the current, it has to magnetize the core, so it goes up like this, and that ramp time causes a delay. So that affects things. That causes a distortion. Depending on how you drive the transformer, what type of amplifier drives the transformer, that distortion can be second harmonic, third harmonic, stuff like that. The API stuff was typically second harmonic. It was steel, and it had a nice second harmonic content in the low frequencies from like 300 on down. It went up quite steep. And if you increase the level, the distortion went up with it. The Neves, on the other hand, my Tone Lux stuff, a lot of people say my Tone Lux stuff sounded a lot like the Neve stuff. And my Tone Lux stuff I had a different type of amplifier driving the transformer. It wasn't an op-amp, it was a stable amplifier that had no gain. And because of that, there was very little interaction with the transformer. That transformer had primary third harmonic distortion, but it was the same curve. And I used steel as well, and it was the same type of curve. So, and the Neves, I think, are more third than they are second. In the low frequency range like that, either one sounds fatter. But the primary difference between the APIs and like with mine, and I believe the Neve was the same way, was that the distortion didn't go up with the level. The distortion kind of stayed where it was. So a snare drum would go through, be clean, and then would settle into a harmonic. Wow. Where with the API, when it went through the peak, there was distortion on the peak. So the API had a tendency to sound fatter in a different way than the Neve or the API, because everybody always said the Neves were always a little cleaner than the APIs, but they, with just regular music, they were pretty much the same, but it was the transients that the Neve popped through cleaner, the API was a little dirtier, but at the same time, that was the sound that you wanted. There were certain things that you wanted that sound on, certain things you wanted that sound on. Nowadays, of course, there's like 800 fucking million, yes, 500 modules, and you can pick any flavor you want, and people get too caught up in the flavors. But basically, you had the two directions. You had the API sound, you had the Neve sound. They both made great records. And then, when SSL came in, they didn't have the transformers. They were mostly they were trying to be more like clean. And they were, that was their whole thing. Colorless, yeah. And it was interesting because all the equipment we had in those days was this dark, heavy equipment, all the tube stuff, all the compressors, all that stuff. And it made these beautiful sounding records that were just thick with whipped cream, And when they went over to the digital recordings, the sound of the tape and stuff like that kind of went away, and you had a cleaner sound. So now this warmth was even more important. But it was interesting when that happened, a lot of the earlier devices that were designed to be cleaner and more transparent became less popular because the recording medium was transparent. So the last thing you want to do is go through something transparent into something transparent. You wanted some dirt and to record that. So all those little things, they're all ebb and flow things with the industry, the direction of the way, sound goes and the way the process goes. But they all have a reason. I mean, it was like when I bought the company, this is actually very cool.